Hey, welcome back to the Paddock Pulse podcast. Leah and I are here with none other than champion trainer Cherie DeVaux. Cherie, you have seen the likes of grade 1 winner's circle, grade 2, grade 3, a lot of things in the last 2 years. And you've been nonstop busy at the September sale. We saw you out there working it. And so thank you for the time and just giving us and our listeners a chance to get to know you a little better and to get to know the training life a little better. So, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, no, the pleasure is all ours. If you would kick us off and just give us a little bit about your history, a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and how you got started in horse racing.
So I was born into a standardbred racing family. So those are the horses that run with the carts behind them, for anyone who doesn't know. Completely different than what we do. So the only thing that's the same is they're a horse and they go around in a circle at a fast speed. So I grew up with that. My parents took a sabbatical and moved to Florida. And I always needed horses in my life, which led me to the rodeo arena. I was a barrel racer for a while. When I went to college, my parents moved back to New York, which is always confusing because I was born in Saratoga, but I was raised in Florida, and then my family went back. So it's kind of like confusing. I just like to make sure that when I tell the story, it's 100% true. So I was going to school, and when they left, so did my scholarships because I was an out-of-state resident, and led me into getting a job as a hot walker. And that's how I got started in this. Definitely from the bottom. I worked as a hot walker my last 2 years of college. So I went for 4 years. I didn't graduate. You know, switching schools in a different state, I would always give the advice to think about that because that set me back a year. Um, if I didn't do that, I would not have been on the path that I'm on now because I would never been introduced to thoroughbred racing. So definitely was the path I was supposed to take. But yeah, no. So I started as a hot walker, and then I was like, I can ride these horses, And then I learned to gallop while I was in my last year of college at a farm, and man, it was cold. It was way upstate by the Berkshires, um, with an indoor quarter-mile gallop that we used to go tearing around in, like, freezing weather, so earned my stripes. My first job of note was for Chuck Simon, and I worked for him for 6 years, and his first job with any racehorses was with my father at the harness track, so kinda went full circle. It did go
Yeah.
full circle, and I worked for Chuck for 6 years, and he was the one. I was young. I was healthy. Young and healthy makes you think you're invincible, even though I had a bad injury to a knee. So my illustrious galloping career was going to always be short-lived. Oh, and he was the one that really he passed away, and I do owe a lot of where I am today because of him. Because if I didn't, I would have probably been a broken down exercise rider at this point in my life. But he forced me to be an assistant trainer, which I didn't like because I wanted to go out and party all the time, and gave me a lot
Fair
of
enough.
direction. And then, so I kind of outgrew slash had this time in life where I kind of was not really sure what I was doing. He had kind of wanted me to go to parks, and not that there's anything wrong with that, but I wanted more. If I was going to stay in it, I wanted more. I figured I dedicated a summer to working for Chad Brown, and then I was kind of going to figure out from there. And then Chad had asked me to be one of his assistants and take over the Belmont string that October. So I said, this is going to be my last. It was always going to be my last assistant trainer job. Whatever that meant was whatever that meant. And I said that for however long this is what I said in my very myself is, however long this is going to be my life. And until this doesn't suit me anymore, I'll go do something else and I'll figure it out. It always comes up, do you want to be a trainer? And when I was younger and working for Chuck, it was always a yes, but I was very naive. And then when I started working for Chad and worked with the upper level, top horses, and his barn was growing back then,
Yeah.
and I was a big part of that. So, you get to be part of something like that. And then what happened is I met my now husband, David, and it's hard to have a job like that and a husband and not be. So I give all the credit to where I am because David was the one that pushed me because I was doing bodybuilding and I was kind of like, well, that's it. This is done. He said, "What do you want to do?" And I says, "I'm not going to be another assistant trainer. I'm burned out from this." And at the time, we were just talking as friends. We weren't dating at the time. But he's the one that pushed me. He says, "You're too talented to not give yourself a chance to do this." I think that's really important as a takeaway in life. Is if you don't have a partner or a friend or people in your life who push you, because I was happy to just do the easy thing. Like, I know going off and saying I'm gonna go do bodybuilding and fitness competing, and that was easy for me at the time, honestly, but going
Like
and
that's easy.
yeah, at the
But
time,
it
it was
I hear
super
you.
easy, but he says, "Let's just do it together," and that's really when we started talking about life plans, because he wasn't gonna push me to do something I wasn't comfortable doing, and that's kind of where we were in a personal relationship and professional. So then I kind of in the same week, I left working for Chad on a Sunday, and I stuck to my promise that I would put everything I had until the last day I left that job. And then Monday was the new part of my chapter, and started getting myself ready to be a career in training. Gave myself a month to get myself organized. So then we got married on Friday. So it was just you know,
It's a whole new
whole
world.
life change in about 5 days span where my life went 180, and it took me a while. But I started with basically one horse, and just trudged along until I tell a lot of trainers who are getting started, it took me almost a year, over 11 months to win my first race. And, you want to talk about trying to keep your mind right. And then we got a little momentum, and then COVID happened. So, but then, kind of right after that, what I was saying is I tell a lot of trainers, a lot of times you just go and put one foot in front of the other, and it feels like you're treading water and you're going to drown, but you just got to keep your head above water until it finally gets easier. And it will. You just have to
Mhm.
have to believe that. So, and that brings me to where I am today.
Yeah. Oh, there's like a million things to unpack.
I
You
know.
just
I was like, I'm so entranced by the story.
There's several mic drop moments. I definitely want to go back and mention college and a 4-year degree. That's like a whole nother podcast for like a different industry. But like, anyway, I'm not gonna that's all I'm gonna say is like, look at where you are now, and it's really impressive. And word to the wise and to the kids that are growing up, like, decide what you really want to do. Don't just get a degree to get a degree. Did Chuck, sorry, we're going way back because there's so many things. Like, you knew, like, when you found Chuck, knowing that your dad, that he worked for your dad, right? Like, that kind of just kind of came up whenever you went back to New York. He was
No,
there.
actually, I like to do things on my own, and I had started galloping, and I was Lorna Chavez is her name. It used to be something. She English lady, and she's everyone calls her mother because that's what she does a lot. She would take the younger generation and help them. And she says, "I have a job for you. Come with me." And she dropped me off at Chuck's barn, and I
No.
worked there
Okay.
for over a week until he asked for he never put two and two together that I was the same person. Um, and so
Wait.
yeah, so I went there, she got me the job. I went there, and he was like, "Why didn't you tell me?" And I'm like, "'Cause I'm here on my own accord." And I know that helped because I wouldn't say I was a hot mess. I always got my work done, but I definitely love to live life and go out and party.
Fair
And
enough.
he would just laugh. I'd come in every morning, do my work, and one day it came up, and he says, "You come in, you work, you ride, you run the barn. You're a hard worker." He goes, I would pass out on your dad's tack trunks." So he says, "You're a lot better off than I was."
You're doing all right.
Yes.
Leah, was there anything you wanted to pull from that? Because I definitely have some more things I wanted to pull from her history. Like,
I there's so many things. I first just want to go again back to your time in Florida, and I am from a similar area in Florida of you. I grew up in Punta Gorda, which is in Charlotte
Yeah.
County, and you were in Inglewood, and you, I believe, are a Lemon Bay High School alumni. And this is
Uh-huh.
such a strange, I was so excited to hear your origin story for getting into the horse racing, because growing up in that part of Florida, there's not a ton of horses. There is rodeo and that type of stuff, but I had never even been to a racetrack before I moved to Kentucky to go to UK and start doing thoroughbreds. And so I love that you had that connection beforehand, and that you
Yeah.
still made a way to figure it out, because there would not be very many people from Southwest Florida who are getting into horse racing
No.
So yeah, I just wanted to shout out Lemon Bay.
Yeah.
Lemon Bay
Punta
High.
Gorda Horseman's Association,
Yes.
buckle winner.
Yes. Yes. I love that so much. We're going to have to get together and talk about that because that is it's such a wild little, and unless like you've really even seen that area, you guys would have no idea, but it's so small.
There's
Yeah,
nothing horse about
there's
that area.
there's nothing. So yeah, I hope Lemon Bay is very proud of you, and I hope that Central, Southwest Florida knows the graduate that came out of there, because yeah, well done. All right, sorry, pivoting.
No,
So you mentioned that when you were going about your assistant trainer ranks, you ended up with Chad Brown. And I think probably most of our listeners are aware of who Chad Brown is. But in specifics to Chad Brown, there was one filly there that we are going to have to talk about, because I think our listeners for sure are going to want to know the story of your history with Lady Eli. Can you just walk us through how you first met up with her and kind of a brief overview if you can? I know it's a long, beautiful story, but if you could just give us a snapshot of what that was like.
Yeah, so go ahead, Leah, sorry.
Well, I was just going to say specifically, there's a lot of bad press on how we care for horses at a racetrack. And I would love some of that behind the scene kind of horses first look on it as well.
Right. So at Belmont at the time, I don't know how he structures now, we would get all the Breeders' Cup horses when they're ready to run. They do a lot of their preps at Belmont and stay at Belmont and prep for the Breeders' Cup from there. So she was one. Everybody's talking about early in the 2-year-old season about what a really good prospect she was. And she's mean. Like, she was mean. She's not anymore, but she was super mean. And so she, fast forward on the 4th of July or 4th of July weekend of her 3-year-old year, after winning the Breeders' Cup and, being a 2-year-old champion, she stepped on a nail after the race walking back from the test barn. And I was just there. I'm thinking to myself, I was just there. How does that happen? I watched her walk out of the barn sound, and I watched her walk into the barn, and she was lame. The vet was there, and immediately we x-rayed her foot. There was the nail there. We x-rayed the foot. It actually looked like we were out of the woods because it wasn't it wasn't in any critical joints or in a critical area. But then a couple days later, I've never had a horse with laminitis up to this point. Daniel, who works for me now, I was talking with my vet. Like, the first half hour of the morning, I would organize the morning and then go check all the horses. So the vet was there, Dr. Langsam, who I'm still good friends with. She was there, and I said, Daniel, how's Lady Eli? He goes, oh, she's not good in both front feet. And we both knew what that meant. So she, had an acute bout of laminitis, and
That was fast.
yeah, so we worked through that for about a week. I sat on a bucket, literally, because you're dealing with the filly who wants to eat. Like, she's not nice.
Yeah.
One of the times I went to check her feet, and she was over at the knee. She buckled her knee, busted my nose open. It was quite a time. But at the end of getting her through the acute bout of laminitis, you're left with the insult to the hoof. And she had some rotation, and we had Brian Fairley and Dr.Agne coming in the following week, already had them lined up to come and work on it. Medically is the first one, and then you get the podiatrist. Ideally, if you're in Kentucky, you can get them both, but when you're somewhere like that, you don't. It's hard. So anyway, they were coming in, and it's little by little. We watched every week, and towards the end of the summer, it became apparent she was going to make it back to the races in some capacity.
And what did that, like, what told you it was apparent that she'd make it back to the races?
Not me, it was them. It was them. Like, literally the stages of walking was she can go right from her stall right to the grass patch, and get out of her stall for 10 minutes, and then you can go a little bit longer each day. And I would do that. And then she could walk 1 lap around the barn and go in like twice a day. And then it got to where she was, just step by step, and the rotation didn't go any further. She was comfortable. She was happy. Happy being a operative word, because she was not nice again.
How much time?
So
How much time is that roughly between
it was
part and then
8
you saying you
weeks.
think she's going to make it back?
8 weeks. 8 weeks.
Oh, that's
July 4th to the end of August.
yeah, fast but not fast.
Right. And then a little tidbit, because I will bring it full circle. She did come back. She was a champion. She didn't win a Breeders' Cup, but she won a grade 1, at least one grade 1 each year. But that summer, Dr. Agne was packing his stuff up, and I'll never forget, he had his hand on his blacksmith box, and he says, "Well, this will be the last time I see you. She's gonna ship out." And I was joking. I said, "Come on, let's, we just became friends, and hopefully we don't see each other in this circumstance. Hopefully we'll catch up some other way." And a couple days later, he was killed riding his bike. So bring it back full circle. This year, I got a 2-year-old out of her, and his name is Dr.Agne. I had said offhanded, like, "Oh, we just have to name one of her babies," knowing she was going to go through the sale. The babies would be in the sale. So anyway, now I have Dr.Agne, who won. It was quite emotional. The widow, Mrs. Agne, was there. So full circle with her.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that around because he won on debut, yeah, and at
Yes.
Saratoga of all places. So I remember watching because there was obviously a lot of press going into that race, and I don't know how you feel as a trainer, but just me having working on the breeding and owning side, I hate when that happens because I
Yeah.
always feel like it's a superstitious thing for me. So I can't imagine like the pressure of that moment, and then to see him win on debut like that, yeah, it was a cool moment as a fan to watch. So I can't imagine how it was for you guys.
Yeah, and I'm not, even in Breeders' Cup, I'm not a hugely emotional person, and this was probably about as emotional anyone will ever get.
Yeah. Yeah. I worked with Dr. Agne for a few years at Rood and Riddle. And when I was in college, that was probably my start to the thoroughbred industry. Yeah. He was great to work with, super nice man. And yeah, watching that horse start, I mean, not just make his first start, but to win like he did was a ton of
Yeah.
fun. And watching your reaction, it was beautiful. Like all of it
Yeah.
was just it was so, so very special. And I appreciate just the fact that they took the time with Lady Eli to see how she would progress. Nobody gave
Right.
up on and then she made it back and won a grade one, several grade one, like absolutely incredible. And
Yeah.
to see her become a brood mare, because that often, a lot of these mares tend to leave a lot of things on the track and
Yeah.
it doesn't turn out in the brood mare, in the, brood mare side of things for them, but she's off to a good start. I want to go back to you getting started as a trainer on your own. You said it wasn't easy. And you also started in the industry as a whole from the ground up as a hot walker, not using your name or anything like that. And those things together just hopefully tell a story in themselves for anyone who's interested in this game and in any part of the game. And so, obviously, how to get started. Don't be afraid to start from the ground up, but dive into going out on your own as a trainer because you said it wasn't easy. I watched you get started, and it was inspiring, but I know it wasn't easy. And so, tell me a little bit about that. You wanted to do it on your own. I mean, who was your first big owner? Like, who are the people that said yes first? And yeah, what that looked like?
Well, really, my first big owner was David, and us, we were our own clients.
You were your first big owner.
Yes. We owned a lot of horses. West Point was on board quite early, and they still support me, which I'm grateful for. But I got a horse here, a horse there, but really it was us doing it on our own. So, David buy horses and we try to make the best we could. And he jokes, he says, I assembled the worst group of horses ever. Paul Manganero. I'm sorry. I don't know why it totally glazed over. Paul Manganero was my first, like, "Hey, I'm going to send you horses." And he is to this day one of my um, biggest supporters. He's my coach. I talk to him about a lot more than just horse racing.
Yes.
So, we talk about life. We talk, he is, and I am grateful for him. And then what happened in 19, David and Paul put together Belladonna Racing. That was something really simple, like just let's put new people in. And they raised X amount of money. They had 6 fillies. In the first group, they had Baroness, who, she was like my first real big horse. And she
Yeah.
ran second in a couple graded stakes. She won an overnight stake, ran in the Oaks. And that now has morphed into a huge group partnership. We bought 26 horses in total out of the sale, a lot of high dollar horses. But also went back because of the way Belladonna started. It was kind of like you could get in for a little amount of money. The horses weren't as expensive, but we just started we went back to that and started a new group for that. It's called Andiamo Racing, which if anybody is interested, there's still some availability in that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still not cheap because these are not syndicates. We're not syndicating the horses. It's a partnership. So you're paying direct if you buy 10% of it, you own 10% of each of the horses in the package, and you paid your 10% of the bills. There's no markup. There's no, that's just the way. And David and Paul and their team run it all. But
Nice
yeah,
and
so that really got us started. We got Vahva out of their third or fourth group, and fourth group. I'm trying to think. It's time
that's
seems to
okay.
go slow, but it's flies.
So many.
So she was in their fourth group, and she's a 5-year-old now, and she'll sell. That was one of my first big horses, and then She Feels Pretty came along in the next year. She's 4, and now the Jacksons are a huge supporter of our program, and just enjoy working with them. We've had a lot of success, and then I have Gunther's. They're huge. I have a lot of really nice horses. They're wonderful breeders and support their program. And then of course I have some for Leah, and
Pretty small comparatively, but
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 yeah, no,
yeah.
it's a hodgepodge. But really, how I got started and what we did is, again, boots on the ground. David and Paul with the belladonna is really what got started. And David and I are different. I think success begets success, and that was, I had no help. I was grooming horses and hot walking them, and I was too broken down to ride at the time. So, um, in the very beginning, and I remember just hoping and praying that my help would show up. So enough
Feel you.
help to where like we could at least get the ones. There was mornings. I mean, and anyone goes through it that does this. My sister, she was telling me about it. She's 26 on her own. 27, sorry. So
Good for her. Yes, Adrian. Good.
yeah, so she was telling me, "Oh, the guy didn't show up." And I said, "Well, you're earning your everybody goes through it, babe. Like that's what we do. You have start from the bottom." And now I have about almost 100 employees, and it's just I sit there and ever so often I'll look at like a rake that's been put somewhere that drives me nuts, and I'll think, "I remember going to Home Depot and getting my first rakes and pitchforks, and now I have all this crap." I almost said something else that we haul around everywhere. And I
Yeah.
just remember getting my first feed tubs and water buckets and everything to get started. So it's quite profound. It seems like it's a short amount of time sometimes in one respect, and sometimes it seems like it took forever. But now that I hope I'm stay on the other side of it, that it doesn't seem like it was that long. But when I was
Yeah,
in
no.
it, it was
So
a
what
day
was
to
the
day.
first year you started?
2018.
18. 18. Yeah, no. I mean, I would say 10 years to be where you are now, and you did it in a lot less.
Yeah.
To
with
you
with
and
COVID and a complete disruption of
Yeah,
all of racing and everything in the world happening in the middle of that. So yeah, I think that's remarkable.
exactly.
and everyone needs a
Good
coach.
times.
Everyone needs a Paul.
Yeah.
But I remember you telling me some things he did to inspire you to help you manifest those first grade wins and those first graded stakes wins, and all of that goes into it. And I also like, and I'll just re-highlight, everyone goes through it.
Yeah.
The help not showing up, the hard work. If you're gonna have success, you have to start from the bottom. And that's okay. Like don't be
Yeah.
afraid to come to the bottom and start as a hot walker or start learning how to groom a horse. Like those are the best possible training times of life.
Well, and if you don't, like, one of my questions always is when I'm making like the breeze list, how many hot walkers do we have? So I know I mean, I can breeze as many as I have for riders, but if I don't have anyone to walk them when I get back, so it gives like, okay, I got to make sure that they're not stressed and shorting the horses before, sometimes weather, whatever, you have to do what you have to do, but
Mhm.
it helps you understand and like, and I
Right.
learned so much just by asking. There's a thought that you have to know somebody to be somebody, and my parents were not, they were harness trainers. They didn't have any ties to thoroughbred, so even if I wanted to, wasn't going to. My mom did help me get my first job because they were across the street from where they were, across the barn. But you can be, I like to think that if I can do it, anyone can do it, like I'm almost naive to the point of like there's no quit in me, and I'm too much of a thick head to think I'm going to fail. In the
That's
beginning,
good.
there were times when I
I
was
love that.
having a well, there were times in the beginning, David, the one thing I said when we had that conversation, in the summer of 2017 is I said, "Well, if I'm gonna do this, you're gonna have to Dr. Phil me a lot." To this day, he'll say that was the most true statement that I had ever said, because I had a lot of meltdowns, and I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like this was all fun, no. I had a lot of meltdowns. I had a lot of things just be on the wrong end of the weather or, a draw or, just things like that. And a couple times he told me one day finally, he says, "Give this 3 years, and if you wanna quit, we'll quit, and, it's fine." So I said, "Okay, we'll go 3 years." And then he like, sometimes failing or something, and I looked at him and I said, "I don't wanna be rude," I said, "but I've never failed at anything I've put my mind to." Now that doesn't mean it comes out the way somebody wants to, but if I put my mind to doing something, I'm not failing, because I'm not gonna you might have setbacks, you might have bad days.
Different result, but still not a
Right.
failure.
No. And some people may say, "Well, that didn't work out." Well, no, is it failure? And that can go into bad relationships and bad work relationships. Like, it's not take something away from it.
Yeah.
It might not have worked, but it led you to where you are, so but I remember telling him, I'm like, "I don't fail at anything," and it was, like, so ignorant and egotistical of me, but
But it's not at the same
no,
time.
no.
Everyone
Yeah,
should
to be fair, like in this industry, and whether you're on the racetrack or whether you're on the breeding side or the sale side or all of the above, it really is. That's such a great mindset to have because, as we speak about all the time on this podcast, it is not an industry for the faint of heart. And that's not just racing, that's horses, but also livestock and agriculture in general. It really requires you to kind of reframe, like you were saying, the way you're approaching those. And okay, it wasn't a failure because I took something away from that and now we're growing. The people who are the most successful, especially in this industry, are the people who have that or a similar mindset where, you really have to first and foremost love it, and you have to be a little bit stubborn, and you've got to have a little bit of that, whether you want to call it arrogance or whatever. Like you said in the beginning, maybe you were a little naive. You have to be willing to kind of take one on the chin and keep going. And I think that you and your whole story is such a great example of that I love it. And I hope that our listeners are inspired by that because, we talk all the time. There's so many seats at the table in this industry, and sometimes you have to make your own table, but there's so many opportunities if you just work hard and put your head down and do it.
let's go.
And that's it. I think a lot of people get discouraged because this didn't work out, and it's like, I mean, I did the grunt work. At every job I did the grunt work. So when I was working for Chuck, I didn't, we didn't have it set up like when Chad, he didn't have visa workers, he didn't have all this. I mean, I would groom horses, I would ride 10 a day, I would breeze all the horses, I'd have poultice on my face, walk. I would do whatever it took. And I think that's really, like when I worked for Chad, nobody wanted to stay in New York for the winter. And I was like, you know what, I'll do it. It's fine. The last 2 years, it wasn't suiting me anymore. And it was a discussion. And I just said, I'm not staying here. It's not good for my mental health. But for the 6 years prior, I did it. And I
Yeah.
didn't complain. Have to and be patient, like I see a lot of people that are trying to do things at a accelerated rate and it just doesn't happen and then feel discouraged when it doesn't work. Like I worked for, you know, 14 years learning and I still learn stuff every day. I still learn from the horses or from the people or, well, that didn't work or, I've never seen, I had a bout of bad luck with horse injuries and things going on. And if I had to hear, this is so rare, I've never seen this before, or I've been practicing for 50 years and I've never seen that. Like, okay, well, that's great because if I have one more person call me, like, it was a tough time in the spring with some bad stuff that happened to where I'm
Yeah.
questioning, like, what am I doing? And it was all so random, weird things. And it's like, this is what's happening. I had a lot of good luck for a while, and now I'm in of bad luck. And
The
that's
horse
what it
with
was. You could do the best you can, but you have to know that you're doing the best you can, and things are still going to happen.
yeah. There's so much this is an amazing podcast. I can't wait to break it up and share some of these little like blips on social. Do me a quick favor. You talked about the sales and you guys bought a bunch of nice horses for your partnerships. What do you like? You've been around the likes of Lady Eli. She feels pretty more than looks. Been around a lot of good horses. What do you guys look for? What's your favorite, things when you're looking to buy a yearling for racing?
So when I get a list to go look at horses, I'm usually getting the list of what we've bid on and gonna vet. David is, before we got married, was awe of his talent to find horses. And I trust that implicitly. Like, I'll go look at a horse and it'll check the boxes. He loves the horse. I like the horse, but that's why it works. You're a team. So his team, goes through, gets a short list. I really like when I go look at horses, I'm not just looking at them on the shank walking back and forth. I try to interact with them, and it's hard because we're looking at so many horses, but just try to interact with them just a little bit. Number one, I feel bad for them. They're going in, they're going out. So even just if it's a little nudge or pet, and there was one that was just throwing a fit and rearing up, and she was actually really sweet. But if you looked at her and you're one of those people, a person that says, "Oh, that's a bad actor," and you mark it off, but was playing with her and, she's kind of she was over it, so I try to really look at the whole package. I'm not really looking at horses that David doesn't want to buy. So, and again, David's buying the horses. I'm just looking at them to see. Sometimes he'll send me horses he's on the fence about because he wants to know, like, he wants a push one way or another. And I'll say, that one's not for me, and if he really likes it and I'm adamant that it's not for me, he'll send it, other trainers or, clients. And sometimes I'm wrong, a lot of times I'm wrong.
Yeah.
But I'm happy for him if he bought a horse and it does well. So, but yeah, it's a package. It's not, it's not just a catalog page. It's
Yeah.
the individual horse. It's the whole thing. It's how they act. It's how they're built, and chances are we're going to be wrong anyway.
I love that you said that. He actually, when he was looking at horses at the barn, I don't know what came up, but he definitely said something to me like, my wife isn't wrong often. We were talking about training and how you're trained really for us. And he was like, she's not wrong very often. And I was like, look, you're confident. Love that. And then here you are. You're like, I'm wrong all the time. Hey, listen, at
Well,
least we're all human.
I think in this, we're, when you look at it as a whole, we're often wrong.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
I think we're often wrong in this sport in general. I mean, we've touched on this before. I mean, a really good win percentage would be like in the 20% somewhere. And like, what kind of industry are you celebrating a 20% win percentage? So yeah, I mean, I think part of the beauty of this game is that we are often wrong, and it's a great equalizer. So yeah, you've got to get used to being wrong if you want to be in the thoroughbred industry.
Well, I laugh whenever I'm looking, every day in the morning. I look through, all my runners and I handicap the races. It's the first thing I do. And if I have no runners, like, I forget what day of the week it is. So it's one of those. But my line that everyone laughs at is when I sit down and say, "Oh, we don't have any runners. We're not a loser today," because we are measured on our success. I mean, it is very like you win or you lose.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So if you're not running, you're not a loser.
No, absolutely. I appreciate that, how you've kind of dropped a little bit about your day, and that's kind of one of the things you do in the morning is handicap the races that your horses are in. And you mentioned having enough hot walkers for your breezers, and like there's just so much that goes in day to day, and we don't have time to get into it, but thank you for a little bit of that insight as well. Leah, do you want to close us out with our two hot seat questions, or did you have anything else you wanted to ask before we move on?
I just have a completely fan-based question because I am such a fan of She Feels Pretty. What is she like in the mornings and just all the time, especially in the mornings? Because and you can tell me if I'm wrong or not. I love watching her run because she just looks like she would like run through a brick wall. And I don't know if you are following. I'm obsessed with Ilona Maher, the rugby player, and I imagine that she's like the horse version of her. So please tell me if I am completely off the mark.
Well, she's actually she's kind of funny. It's well known. She's got her best friend Mickey, that goat that I'm not a fan of, but for her, I broke protocol of the. No, I mean, I was staunch no goats in the barn, and he's grown on me. But she's was kind of one of those when she first came in as a 2-year-old, and I travel a lot. She broke her mane to Ellis. She came, we're at Breeders' Cup, and she cribs, and she just seems so unsettled in her stall. Not bad. She always ran well. She looked fine, but she was doing a lot of growing up until this year, basically. But she never seemed super content, like in her stall. She always seemed worried. She's got, you guys probably know, like above their eye, they get that little like worried look, the little wrinkles there. And whenever a pet would come by, she would
Relax.
nuzzle them and that would just melt away. So now she's got the goat, but the funny thing is she's just kind of like, it's her world, we're living in it. You know, like when she's gotten in the habit where if a pony does not make her train, she will stand there for an hour and you can hit her, you can bait her. She won't go until a pony drags her 2 steps. That's all you have to do. 2 steps and she'll jog off. And sometimes she could be like, you know, she just wants to do things her own way. And not in a bad way. She's never has reared up on somebody. She's never, but she'll just like, I don't want to jog right now. I'm going to lope or I'm going to do this. And, you know, like, but that's kind of her. She's not difficult, but she definitely wants her thing and she's earned that right. So her and her goat can cohabitate together and keep doing what they're doing.
I thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
I'm such a fan, but as Leah, poor Leah's like trying to like ask you questions. I'm like, I just need to know about this one horse that you have.
Yeah.
But if our listeners follow Cherie on social media, we will drop some of those so you guys can follow. But she does post quite a lot of content, which is amazing content. But there is a lot with this goat, which I'm obsessed with. So I'm sorry, Leah, go ahead.
No, I'm just really glad that you highlighted that because I was kind of curious as to why some barns will have a goat in the barn. I mean, I knew it was for like a companion animal, but the fact that you were able to explain what makes you realize a horse might need it and the fact that you actually, and it's the reality, right? Trainers pay attention to their horses. This is how you guys are so good at what you do. And I just think it was really great insight. So thank you for sharing that. It's a good question, Leah.
All right. So just to close it out, we always ask our guests these 2 questions at the end of the episode. The first question is, when you were first starting out, and it could be even a standardbred, it doesn't have to be specific to thoroughbreds, but was there a horse that as a fan or as a member of the industry just really, really hooked you and made you think this is maybe something that I want to do for a living?
No, actually, I come from a different take. I'm not a fan of horse racing. Like I was a huge fan of Zenyatta, but I was already well into horse racing. You know, I was well into this. And now I train her last foal, and that's exciting. I came in from this from a total. I'm a horse girl, and I am a goal oriented, and just like the She Feels Pretty, I like to figure them out. So you know, a lot of this, I love when babies come in or new horses, and you get to learn their personalities, learn what works, learn what doesn't work and kind of hone in on fixing what you need to fix or strengthening what needs to strengthen. But yeah, I would say I was a fan of Zenyatta. I was a fan, you know, but I really just loved working with the horses. And I don't bet. I'm not a historian. My husband is. He loves the sport. He can go back and tell you anything. And I just be like, yeah, that horse. And I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And he's learned now that I didn't follow it unless it pertained to me. I didn't follow it unless it pertained to me. So you know, Zenyatta was one of the few that, you know, I became a fan of. And I'm,
And then
you know,
before, so David bought Zenyatta. And that was before you two were ever together. Or did you even know David at the time?
no.
Amazing. I love that. And now you have her last foal. I wanted to talk about that because that's been such a fun thing to have in the barn. So please give us an update, if you will, whenever.
Yeah. So she's just needs some time. She's encroaching on 17 hands and she has some not problems. She just needs some time now to grow up and catch up. So she's having a little break right now and will be a spring horse. But you know, that's what she is. She's a big 2-turn filly. So we just, like I said, we just need to give her some time to catch up. And you have to push them a little bit to get that bone regeneration. You watch them closely, and then when they need time, we got to give them the time. So that's where we're at with her. And, you know, so we'll regroup with her.
She's a big mare, right?
Yeah, she's huge. She looks like a dinosaur.
Like mom, which is fun.
She does look like mom. I mean, you guys, again, if you follow on social media, you have posted some stuff there. But yeah, big girl.
Yes, she's huge.
Well, cool. Well, kind of on that same vein then, and I love that you said that, Cherie, because, you know, I think like Leah and I did not start, we did not come from industry, you know, inside industry families or background either. And we both came into the sport for the love of the horse. And I think that's very common. It's a very common story. We all get involved because we just love the horses so much. So normally we ask, you know, who your favorite current racehorse is, but maybe just tell us who your favorite horse in the barn right now is.
Well, I'm not going to say that because it's not going to get me in trouble. But
no,
you can name a few different ones.
Well, no, I mean we have She Feels Pretty. Rebel Red's going to run. I love him. He's a horse that started the meet off last year in Saratoga with 2 eyes, ended it with 1 and ran in that short amount of time. So he's really cool. But I love the 2-year-olds. So when they go out and do something that's basically all on their own, gives you like this such a I don't even know, a warm and fuzzy feeling. I don't know what it is but like we just had a horse run. His name is Englishman, and so impressive first time out. And you hope they break clean and they run well and they come back okay. And he's running, and I'm looking at the fractions, and I'm like, okay, he's gonna get tired. That's fine. And he didn't get tired, and he kept going and getting faster. So I was like, well, holy crap, like we've got ourselves a runner. And then everybody wants to ask what's next, and it's like the horse he was at Churchill, then he came back and he just started jogging him. I just want to make sure he's okay. And come, so it's fun to come up with a plan, come up with developing the horse going forward. So wherever he's going to be, can he stretch out around 2 turns? How are we going to get to that point? Can we find a race going a 1 turn mile, like not doing the same thing, stretching him out a little bit and just see if he can handle the extra distance. So that's the fun part for me. It everything's fun. I can't say that and say, well, She Feels Pretty's not fun or Vahva's not fun. But as you're going through it and they do something like that, and I get the honor of figuring out what to do with that, and how to get him to where he's going to be his best. Is he a derby horse, or is he just going to be, a mile or whatever, and be very good at it, be excellent at it. So that's part, but to run a horse 7 furlongs and then run a mile and a quarter, that's a whole lot, 2 different races. So
Yeah.
we got to come up with a plan to responsibly get him each stage to where he's doing that.
Well, I'd hoped you were
Awesome.
going to bring up him because he's kind of all anyone can talk about, I feel, right now. And it was an exciting win. So please go watch the replay if you're listening to this. He's definitely a horse to watch. So it sounds like that's not like you're not going to try to do a late Breeders' Cup play with him. And
No.
tell me a bit about Breeders' Cup in general, like what you have that's planning to go, and give me a little bit of insight on that. But yeah.
Well,
So no.
we have She Feels Pretty, who won the Win and You're in EP Taylor, and she's training up to the Breeders' Cup. Rebel Red is running in the Joe Hirsch on Saturday. He ran second in the Sword Dancer. So he does, I mean, there's 5 horses in the race, and there's 5 very good horses in the race. So
Solid.
as long as he runs a very good race in there and feels like he moves forward, then he'll be Breeders' Cup bound. Again, he ran such a good race last race. He belongs in the Breeders' Cup. You just got to make sure he's going through it. So even if he runs 4th in a 5-horse field, I mean, it's an amazing group of horses for such a short field. They're all really good. And then Vahva, she's going to run in the TCA, the Thoroughbred Charities of America stake at Keeneland. And she's a filly. She is my first heart horse. I've loved her since we bought her. She won a grade 1. She's been very successful. She put in a disappointing run her first race back, and then she followed that up with a grade 2 win impressively and ran second at Charlestown. She's a finicky filly about, where she runs. She likes Keeneland at 6 furlongs, which she's a 7 furlong specialist. So depending on how she runs, the Breeders' Cup is 7 furlongs, and she's training great, but we just have to make sure. And then she's going to go to the sale. So that'll be my second emotional moment people see, is when she goes through the sales rings.
Oh, yeah. Well, good. Well, I'm excited for you and the Breeders' Cups. So horses to watch as this next month. I mean, in general, there's going to be a lot of horses that are going to the Breeders' Cup and then maybe not going to the Breeders' Cup. And so if you are a fan of horse racing, start paying attention this next month. It's going to be just a lot of fun, a lot of action things. And so we will be watching those 3 horses, Cherie. Just really excited for you and your team. And yeah, props to you for all the hard work you've put in.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks for joining us, Cherie. Leah, we wanted to drop a little bit about the Thoroughbred Makeover before we close out.
Yeah, so our listeners probably remember back in episode 3, we interviewed Allison O'Dwyer, and she is a different trainer. She is a trainer of sport horses and also a specialist in retraining off the track thoroughbreds. And she currently has a horse in training that her husband, who is a thoroughbred trainer, took to Dubai. He won the Golden Shaheen. He's also other graded stakes winner, Sibelius. And she is actually competing Sibelius in the Thoroughbred Makeover, which is coming up here in a couple of weeks at the Kentucky Horse Park. And they just announced the ride times. So we wanted to make sure our listeners got those. So if you are in the Lexington area and you would like to go and see Allison and Sibelius, we're going to try to go. I know they'll appreciate the support. They're going to do 2 dressage tests on Wednesday, October 8th. The first ride time is 2:49 and then 3:03, and that will be in the Walnut Arena. And then Thursday, October 9th, they will do a freestyle, which should be really fun, in the covered arena at the Kentucky Horse Park, and that's at 11:34 a.m. He's also stabled in barn 6 in stall 638, and if you show up and ask real nice, I bet Allison will let you take a picture with him. So definitely head out there. If you've never been to the Thoroughbred Makeover before, it's a great event. They have, if you go to that covered arena, there's signage, but if you're not sure where the Walnut Arena is or any of that, they have people there who can give you a map and help you. So go out and support Allison and Sibelius.
Yeah, and just get to the horse park in general over those, I don't know if it's 4 days or so. It kind of volleys between opening of Keeneland, and so there's a lot of action. But if you get over to the horse park, you're going to see some retired thoroughbred racehorses in their new careers, and it's a ton of fun. I don't know, Cherie, if you've been out there, if you have any horses that have been in it from your barn, if you wanted to mention that at all, feel free to do so.
I didn't see any this year, but I've had some in the past that have done quite well. So it's exciting. I have one that he's not in that, but I gave a couple of really nice horses, and one of them's here in Lexington doing 3-day eventing and killing it. And it's fun. It's so fun for us because these are kids, and we only get horses live to be 20, 25 years old, and we have them for such a short amount of time. And programs like this are great to show what their utility is after this is only a small part of their life, and a lot of us try to responsibly rehome them when they're done with this for one reason or another. It doesn't always have to be an injury. I have a pony named Bully, my pony, who I wouldn't put him in for a claiming tag, and he's my barn pony. Was sound. He just kind of lost interest in running the first part of the race. So but these programs, they showcase the versatility of the breed. And I think it gets lost that we really do try to do these things for them and rehome them and give them more purpose other than just what they're doing on the racetrack.
Yeah, they're too talented to just be
Absolutely.
done at 4 or 5.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks for joining us, Cherie. And guys, until next time, we'll see you at the races. We'll see you at the Thoroughbred Makeover. Make sure you write in. Let us know what you want to hear, who you want to talk to, and we will do our best to bring it to you. Thanks, guys.